We're in Australia, it's Adelaide, and it's the opening round of the 2019 Audi Sport R8 LMS Cup. Day one of competition saw a great result for Tony Bates. He was the man who won race 2 in 2018. He took a great victory over Yasser Shahin. Shahin striking trouble towards the end of the race, but he really did put in a stellar result with the fastest lap. It was a qualifying pace in this extreme heat, 40 plus degrees, really tough behind the wheel of the car. Qualifying saw Jeff Emery take pole position for race 2, which will come a little bit later today. But the big issue in that second qualifying session was Ryan Liu in the GT4. Turn 8 claimed its first victim with the Cup. He hit the wall hard, walked away from the car, saw the medical examiner afterwards. They released him. He was okay. The car had done his job, but it all comes down to round 2. Bates will be on the second row. Jeff Emery has pole position. It's going to be an incredible race. Make sure you stay with us. Tony, after the frustration of qualifying yesterday, you still got pole position. You really opened the account here at Adelaide again very nicely.
Yeah. The key was to put it on pole yesterday, and try and get a good start and drive away from what's a pretty talented field behind me there.
You'd said that to me yesterday, that it really was going to be tough. Any one of these guys could really win the race.
Yeah. Look, I think the top 6 or 7, there's only about a second between us, and the top 3 or 4, there's only 10th. So, I knew that putting it on pole was always going to be an advantage. It actually exactly worked out that way. I think a few of the boys got tangled up behind me, gave me a bit of a start, and it was about doing consistent laps and not making a mistake, which we did.
Harrianto tried it again.
Yep. I got peripherally, I could see him fly down the outside there, and all I could hope was when he ended up at the other end, he wasn't going to tag me. And I looked back in my mirror, and it was a fair bit of relief when there was a bit of a gap, and obviously they all came to blows, so that certainly helped me. But unfortunate for Burrett and Andrew that they had DNFs.
Yasser was coming pretty hard at the end.
He was coming pretty hard in the early stages too. They sort of had to give me a rev up because he was starting to catch me. And I think, middle stages in the race, we maintained our gap, and I think fairly comfortably holding him, but it was only a mistake away from catching me, so he put the pressure on, but it was really pleasing to get the win.
It's a warm hello from Adelaide in South Australia. Yesterday's race winner there for the opening round of the Audi Sport R8 LMS Cup, Tony Bates in his Audi R8. Convincing drive off the front row to go a lights to flag victory. Let's set the scene for you. We're in the city of Adelaide, lovingly known as the City of Churches, a magic city of 1.3 million people. They absolutely love their sport in this part of the world. And this is one of the best events of the year, the Superloop Adelaide 500, which is the first round of the Virgin Australia Supercars Championship, and also the opening 2 rounds for Audi Sport R8 LMS Cup. This is our venue. Used to be a Grand Prix circuit back in the 80s and 90s for Formula 1 cars. And Sean Henshewett this weekend, it's providing a challenge for the Audis.
As it did 12 months ago, Chad, it was a brilliant opening round to the last year's season. That paved the way for a fantastic championship that went from race 1 all the way through to the final of 10 races. Andrew Harrianto and Birrenbachty going toe-to-toe. Harrianto and Birrenbachty, again, we'll see it on the replay shortly, were right in the thick of action yesterday.
So this is where we saw the stricken car of Harrianto stop yesterday at the outside of Turn 5. There's been some changes to Turn 6s and 7 so far this year, which has made it even more challenging. This is a great spot. Flat out, 200 plus kilometres per hour on approach towards famous Turn 8. There's been some drama there this weekend. A chance to make a nice passing manoeuvre underneath the gum trees down at turn 9. And you whip around behind the pit complex alongside the big stage where some international music acts, including the Red Hot Chili Peppers, will be performing this week. And it really is a festival of motorsport and music here in Adelaide. And the music of the Audi V10 set to ignite Adelaide once again on this famous street circuit. 3.22 kilometres and a 30-minute race to conclude round 2 of the championship before they head over to China for a double header of racing with the Audis. Our man on the grid is Andy Jones. Let's say good morning to Andy.
Very good morning to you, Chad. I found Mark Turner, Audi Sport R8 LMS Cup Series manager. Mate, you work very closely with this competitor base here. How much do they enjoy coming to the Adelaide Superloop 500?
We love this event. We came here last year and you guys really know how to put on an amazing event. From everything that's here for the crowd, from the amount of the crowd, from the whole way the city gets behind it. It is an absolutely fantastic way to start our year.
Well, that's very good to hear. And look, there's plenty of smiles on everybody here. You guys bring a whole heap of people out. Must make it a logistical nightmare. Thanks for chatting with us, Mike.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's go over and see if we can have a quick chat with Jeff Emery. They have this unique qualifying system here, 2 races, 2 separate qualifying system. We had Tony Bates on pole yesterday, and Jeff Emery, you've taken the pole for this race. Looking forward to it. You've got Yasser Sahin beside you.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Obviously, Clipsal, the best place to start is on pole, so get a good start. I think you're pretty well right, because it's really hard to pass around here, so I'm just really going to focus on the start, I guess.
And the main thing here is to keep it nice and clean.
Oh, definitely, mate. It's pretty fast in these GT cars around here, so yeah, no, it's going to be fun.
Thanks for chatting with us, Jeff. These machinery, I cannot talk them up enough. So much technology involved in them, and the racing is absolutely brilliant. We'll go back up to you, Chad, in the commentary box.
Thank you very much, Andy. There is a lot of DNA from the road-going Audi R8 that has made its way into these cars, which we see on the grid today, both the GT3 and GT4 versions. And yesterday's action was frantic and exciting, on from the very drop of the green flag through 30 minutes of hot action. Tony Bates did get the win, pushed all the way by Yasser Sahin. Well, today Tony Bates will be starting from 3rd position. So watch out for the onboard cameras. Thankfully, the conditions here today, Sean, a little bit cooler than what they were yesterday for the first race of the championship. Andrew Harrianto, he's got some work to do off the back of the grid today. And the reason why he's down the back of the grid, well, let's relive that, yesterday's race highlights.
Let's take that look. He tried it down the inside from the 3rd row to the lead last year. This time he tried the outside. This bit worked out okay. Here's where the problem started. And those 3 knocks created dramas for both Biran Bhakti, who was on the receiving end, and to Andrew Harrianto. Harrianto has lost a wheel at this stage, and it's game over. He's parked down at turn 5 for the bulk of the race.
It was a good save, good bit of car control, but unfortunately the damage was indeed done. And a DNF, 0 points, did not finish to start his campaign. And that is turn 8, which we're talking about, lined with concrete. Alex Au was pushing the limits, you could say, through the turn 1, 2 and 3 chicane, losing his left-hand side mirror, but amazingly continuing through the race, and did actually finish inside the top 5.
This was a great battle. It went on all the way through the race. Jeff Emery doing everything he could to try and get around Daniel Bilski, fellow Australian. And we saw this incident again. This just proves the point about how hard Alex Au was pushing, came off on the run into the final corner. Tony Bates, though, untroubled up front. At one stage, Yasser Sahin closed in. That was the result of not being able to see, with sweat in his eyes. It was so hot behind the car. Ultimately, Bilski, in trying to get down the inside of Anderson Tenoto down at turn 9, opened the door for Jeff Emery. He didn't need a second invitation, and that's the way it ended. The one that was on the charge, though, was Yasser Sahin. Now, this was because he was preoccupied. He's trying to find a gear. He's been locked in 2nd gear for the bulk of the last 2 laps, and just on the last lap glanced the wall on the way out of turn 8. Crossed the line still on the podium, but he had a tough close to that opening race.
So Tony Bates getting the job done from Yasser Sahin and Jeff Emery. And we're looking forward to this 2nd race here to go today, the Audi Sport R8 LMS Cup here. Beautiful conditions in Adelaide, South Australia for their 2nd race. Time to go racing with the Audis. Audi Sport R8 LMS Cup, an Asian-based championship that once again starts here on the streets of Adelaide. From here we go over to China for 4 races, then Japan, the famous Suzuka Grand Prix circuit. It all concludes in November at Sepang in Malaysia. Difficult conditions yesterday, much talked about heat here in Adelaide, but now thankfully we're looking at substantial substantially cooler conditions. Should be expecting a top of just above 30 degrees today, much more comfortable.
Well, they're talking cabin temperatures in the region of 65 degrees. And cool suits were basically negated after 3 laps. Drink bottles were pretty much gone by the time they got through the opening lap. It was a very uncomfortable stint. They all looked very second-hand by the time they made the podium yesterday, the 3 Australians. But by the time they'd been handed a trophy, the moods had improved, but they certainly felt that it was the toughest race they'd ever done. In fact, Yasser Shahin was contemplating pulling out. It was so bad. And then, of course, he had that drama at the end. But only a couple of laps prior to that, of course, we were watching him set purple sector after purple sector, set the fastest lap of the race, 1:21.7, which is not far off qualifying time. So that was a very, very good job. Now, the man at the back, by virtue of that incident and that contact at the centre chicane off the opening lap, received a 5-position grid penalty post-race and a wrap across the knuckles. So he is starting rear of field, but even from position 10, you could never discount Andrew Harrianto.
This is exactly how they'll line up, and Jeff Emery, who's got a lot of wins to his name in the Australian GT Championship, has been a regular now for Audi in the R8 for the last few seasons alongside Yasser Shahin. Tony Bates, yesterday's race winner, will have to come from row 2. Birrenbachty, we didn't get to see the best of Birrenbachty yesterday after the opening lap crash. Dan Bilski held on for as long as he could. And watch out for Andrew Harrianto, who'll be coming off that last row. And very aggressive typically in car 28, the reigning champ from Indonesia.
There's another Indonesian immediately in front of him, the blue and yellow car. That is the GT4 of reigning GT4 champion Anderson Tanoto. The two Indonesians rather, sharing a GT4 car yesterday in last year in an 888-kilometre race around Shanghai International Circuit. But we are on the Adelaide Parkland Circuit. Safety car will come off and we will be underway with a rolling start.
Watch for yesterday's race winner inside row 2. Watch for last year's champion off the very last row as the Audis roll around to take the green flag. GT3 and GT4 equipment on the grid, and we are ready to go racing once again in Adelaide, and this is going to be exciting as they go 4 wide down towards the first chicane. This is going to be crazy under brakes, and it's Birrenbachty who leads. How about that for a start?
The two Australians who jumped by both Alex Au and Birrenbachty, 2 race-winning drivers in past seasons of the Cup, and they are right at it. The blue and yellow and grey entry of Alex Au on right of screen. Birrenbachty in the black and red liveried car really made a brilliant start, but 4 wide into the centre chicane. That never works.
The front row got absolutely jumped, and they have been relegated to 3rd and 4th position as Alex Au aggressively moves forward. Bates and Harrianto further back in the pack, going side by side. Bates going backwards at the start of this race. I wonder if race control will be looking at that start, because it was certainly frantic.
It was. It almost seemed that Jeff Emery was just trying to control the field to a slower level so he could get the jump once he got to the line. But certainly the drivers behind him looked like they were already on the throttle. We'll see how that plays out. Tony Bates going down the inside again of Andrew Harrianto, who made a great start. So keep an eye on those two as they work their way forward in this race.
Decisive move from the Australian round 1 winner yesterday. Completely different looking top 5 to 24 hours ago. Sun Jin Zhu doing a great job to hang in there in the blue Audi R8, sitting in 5th position. He's got Tony Bates right behind him. Now for Bates to get around that blue R8, there is a chance at turn 4 if he can get a clean run through the chicane.
Now this is an amateur field this year, as it was 12 months ago. There are no pro drivers in the field, so these drivers very much use this as a pastime. So Alex Au and drivers like Alex Au, who do a lot of GT-style racing, don't make it a profession. Keep a look at that. Wow, Birrenbachty from the 3rd row down the inside of everybody into turn 1. That was an Andrew Harrianto, but wow, yes, let's see how that goes post-race. Very close to contact. Jeff Emery got absolutely swamped. So too Yasser Shahin, looking at the tail of Alex Au there, who tucks in behind Birrenbachty. Wow, that was a big move. Jeff Emery taking the position back to move into 3rd as they came out of turn 2.
Serious heads-up awareness from the drivers in the front row. I'm not sure there was any paint swapped at all on that opening lap. Very impressive start to this race.
Sun Jingzhou in the all-blue entry immediately ahead of the 24 of yesterday's winner, Tony Bates. Batesy will be kicking himself a little bit. He's dropped further back than he would have liked. He's really keen on pressing on in this championship. Some great prizes up for offer too. A drive for 3 of these drivers in the Suzuka 10-hour race next year in a supported GT3 Audi R8, and also grand prize of a road car for the championship season-ending winner. So good opportunities too. Of course, 4 of these drivers from last year's championship off to the Spa 24-hour race this year. And that was a big prize for them and very well chased down. Yasser Shahin will be one of the entries in that car. So too, Guru Pirambarki and Andrew Harrianto. Seemingly at the moment, Batesy doesn't seem to have much there. Of course, by virtue of winning yesterday, he carries a 30-kilogram success penalty. 20 kilos to Yasser Shahin, 10 to Jeff Emery. And Emery in interviews last night was saying, well, I don't think that's going to make too much difference. That shouldn't bother me too much at the moment. That looks pretty right as he sits in 3rd position again. Talking to Pirelli yesterday, lap 3 was the one that we would look at for potentially the quickest lap when they're qualifying. Of course, they're not qualifying right now, but we did see qualifying times out of Yasser Shahin very late in that race yesterday. And he's a little bit further back in position 4, and he's keen too to get back onto the podium. Sun Jingzhou, wow, he's punching out very quick sectors at the moment. It's purple. He's back in position number 5, the man on screen, the all-blue entry. Big off during practice 3 on Friday morning. Went into the barriers quite hard on the exit of the centre chicane. Got it all wrong on the second curve. The car sideways, lost the left rear wheel or tyre, and that stuck him backwards into the concrete. It was quite a heavy knock, but they got away with it quite quickly and were able to repair that car, the Absolute Racing team, within 3 hours and get him out for qualifying. But Tony Bates then had a spin after setting the pole time in Q1. Went backwards into the barriers at turn 8, and that did a little bit more damage for him, but he was able to press on.
I'm hearing that there's something loose in this car. Oh, there we go. And that is Yasser Shahin. That might be a piece of foam off some of the roll cage assembly. Looking at that.
You don't need any kind of distraction like that behind the wheel, do you? It's focused eyes forward. And Yasser's already had a tough run of it so far this weekend, losing all gears except second in the closing stages of yesterday's race. Only narrowly made it to the podium. Lost 10 seconds in 1 lap. That was still not a bad effort considering he was running around in 1 gear, but obviously elsewhere with his thoughts in trying to just get the car around, and we saw that as he glanced on the final lap coming out of turn 8.
Let's ride on board with Andrew Harrianto of Indonesia as he gets set to start his 4th or 5th lap of the race. Remember, these races are timed races. You can see that ticking down on the left-hand side. Giving himself some self-encouragement down on the start line that time by, and he's lost a bunch of time going through the chicane there.
Just doesn't seem to have the centre chicane nailed, does he? He's hit it in all kinds of different angles this weekend. Put himself completely airborne during second qualifying.
Tony Bates is hounding the back of Sun Jingzhou further up the road. You can see that battle through the windscreen. Andrew Harrianto tries to reel them in. Turn 7 and the run onto this long straight that takes you up towards turn 8. Very fast approach up here. We're looking at 220 kilometres per hour.
Whilst Batesy's trying to move in on Sun Jingzhou at the front of the field, Biram Bhakti's close to within 0.6 of a second of race leader Alex Au. So that's getting very, very interesting. Batesy really pushing Jingzhou very, very hard. Chinese driver a little bit at odds last year when he made his debut here on the streets of Adelaide, especially against somebody experienced like Batesy, but performing very well this weekend. Yeah, that's an odd angle. We don't see that too often. He seems to have gone in far too deep under brakes into one and just carried it across the curb. He did mention after he'd launched himself airborne the other day, he'd taken a bit of a knock to the back, so he's a little stiff this weekend. That won't have helped that situation. Lights flashing now with Batesy. He'll try that technique to see if he can just upset the rhythm of the Chinese driver, who's performing very, very well, and another one who's taken great experience from the mentoring program that the Audi Sport R8 LMS Cup has. Whilst it's all amateur drivers this year, as it was last year, there are pro drivers Martin Rump, the Estonian, who's won many races in one of these cars. Weiron Tan, a winner in the FIA WEC and LMP2 just a few months ago. And Frankie Chung, a pioneer in China. Oh, Batesy has a look down the inside, but he's been around here enough times. But he's clouded the tyre barriers on the exit. The mentoring program really has worked well for many of these drivers, and they've taken great experience from that. And one of those, of course, is Jingzhou, who actually drives in the Blancpain series in Asia alongside Frankie Chung. Here is the race leaders. Biren Barkley doing everything he can to try and poke the nose down the inside. Season high 4 wins for the Thai driver last year. Pushed Andrew Haryanto all the way to the final round in Malaysia for the championship. A little bit Batesy sticks the nose down the inside. Yesterday's win, I'm reliably informed. And on the exit, just did grab the wall. He did that yesterday when he was a little bit blinded by sweat pouring into his eyes so high with the cabin temperatures. Doesn't want to do too much of that. Andrew Haryanto still following them around, but they have been great performers so far right across this weekend. And talking to Batesy yesterday, he said he really couldn't pick who was going to win this weekend. Everybody's in with a shot, all identical cars, all identical engines obviously, all identical tyres. And really it's down to experience. That plays well for the Australians and has done in past seasons. Batesy going on to take his 13th win from 15 starts here on the streets of Adelaide in a variety of categories, so he's keeping that momentum going. Contact that time.
That's not the way to do it. Into the right rear of Alex Au, and he's dragging some damage out the back. They'll go side by side up towards turn 8. How does Biren Barkley play this? He swings into the lead. There's still that piece of debris flapping off the back of Alex Au. He's now going to be under attack from Jeff Emery. He covers, but Emery goes anyway.
Sees he's injured, dives down the inside, takes the advantage. Yasser Shahin closing in very, very quickly too. And testament to that, he set the fastest lap of this race, a 1:22.2. Yesterday, just before he had his dramas, he turned out a 1:21.7. Cooler conditions, so we're hoping that we may see the quickest ever lap in an Audi R8 LMS GT3 around the Adelaide circuit in this race for the Cup.
Au was a little bit rattled then going back through turn 11. Just only made it through turn 11, he ran so wide. There he, unfortunately, pieces of Audi now stricken on the racetrack. Here it is once again.
It's one of those things we talk about a lot. Visibility isn't the greatest in these cars, where you're positioned down low and further towards the middle of the car.
Whoa! Piece of debris went flying in the background, then it must have been off Alex Au's car, went sky high, 3 or 4 cars back. So that will surely still be sitting on the road between turns 3 and 4.
Jingzhou still has that position ahead of Tony Bates. Batesy unable at this stage to do much about it. And we saw that yesterday when Daniel Bilski, who's back in position number 8 in the all-red entry, just at top of screen, held up Jeff Emery for much of the race. He was able to drive an inside line, as Jeff said to me last night. Said he had every line covered, but just at the last second, towards the end of the race, he went down to turn 9, went in a little bit too deep here under brakes. That opened the door for Emery. He was able to drive away, but so close are they in performance, and so tight is this circuit that overtaking opportunities are relatively limited. So they can be a little bit risky. Certainly Jeff didn't want to risk any of that. Looking forward to a season campaign in Australian GT a little bit later in the year, kicking off at the Australian Grand Prix. So he's keen to make sure that he comes out of this weekend unscathed with as good a result as possible. Biren Barkley leads across the line. The man we're talking about, Jeff Emery, 2-time AGT champion in position number 2, and very keen to open his account for the 2019 season with a win here in Adelaide.
At the moment, he's the only driver on for back-to-back podiums. A very different looking podium to what we saw yesterday with Biren Barkley running in the lead of this race. Back on board with Haryanto, trying to reel in Sung Jingzhou for 6th position. Can Bates set sail and catch Yasser Shahin? Different circumstance for him yesterday, as Shahin was the hunter, not the hunted.
So Shahin still punching out quick sector times, so certainly that defies a little bit the fact that the tyres come up to their peak on lap 3. We're now on lap number 9. And he's getting quicker and quicker. You can see the tail now of Alex Au. That little bit of damage is predominantly around the extraction of the hot air from the back of the car, from the brakes and the engine bay. So shouldn't do too much to the overall aero efficiency of the car. But as you say, Chad, you're a little bit rattled after that contact, and that's where the pro drivers can shake those things off quite quickly, and for the amateur drivers, it just takes a little bit longer to dial yourself back in, a little bit like Yasser having to worry about a piece of roll cage foam bouncing around on the dashboard of his car. That seems to have disappeared, fortunately. Hopefully somewhere else in the cabin that's nowhere near the pedals.
Just thinking that.
We saw how that works when we had Tony Bates leading last year, hit the brake and the accelerator going down to turn 5 at the same time. First time he said he'd ever done it, and that spun him out of the lead of the race and into retirement in the end. They were buried into the gravel trap just at that part of the circuit.
I wonder if there's going to be a question mark over Birambaki for that contact down at turn 7.
Well, perhaps the starting might be the bigger issue for some of those drivers at the front of the field that got there just so quickly, one of those being Alex Howe on screen. So we'll find that one out afterwards. Of course, the result will be provisional until the stewards have been right through everything. They fire through turn 8 again. Noticeably, Yasser Shahin giving the wall a little bit more room this time round after that dramatic 720 during qualifying last year. Didn't hit a thing. So much so as he came out of it and kept going in the right direction down to turn 9. A couple of laps later, he went on to set pole for that session. Birambaki, quickest lap of the race. He's now into the 121.7s rather. 121.709 last time round. Opens the lead up just a little bit now to Jeff Emery. You can see the Australian driver behind him pushing hard. 1.13 seconds the difference. Alex Howe still in position 3. Yasser Shahin goes through. Bates is clear now of Sun Jingzhu, who's now under fire from the reigning champion, Andrew Harrianto.
Half a second up on yesterday's fastest times. They are flying, and they've actually just lowered that again. Now 8/10 quicker than yesterday, and there's some more debris lying around the circuit. Pieces of carbon fibre.
Certainly the one thing with these cars, we're used to touring cars, certainly back in the old Group A and Group C days, banging doors and all those sorts of things, fine. That was Rubbins Racing, boys, but these days you don't want to push these modern-day GT cars into each other with wings, dive planes, all those things on the edges of the car. It can have a big impact on the overall lap-by-lap performance. So you want to give a little bit of racing room. Rubbing isn't racing in this instance. It's not the quickest way to get around the circuit. You might want to push a little, but not too much, and risk any damage to the car, because that can have an incremental effect on the overall lap time. Tony Bates into the purple sectors. Birambaki's just lowered his best to a 121.49. That is very close to the quickest lap we've seen around here. 121.26 for Tony Bates in Q1 last year. Mark Williamson and Anderson Tanoto towards the rear of the field in the GT4 version of the Audi R8 LMS. And these were introduced last year to great fanfare around the world and has been a great formula. And talking to Mark Williamson yesterday, he said he urges anybody who's interested in motorsport that wants to make a debut into GT racing to start with one of these cars. They are just so user-friendly. One of the things he explained to me yesterday, they're also still fitted with air conditioning, Chad. So that was making the GT4 guys an awful lot happier, although, of course, that has a performance effect on the car. Same engine performance, of course, 5.2-litre naturally aspirated V10 Audi engine, but it's the braking systems and certainly the aero. You can see just how different the cars look physically. The rear wing being the biggest thing, the front splitter the other one. That is where the GT3s are able to take about a 7-second a lap advantage over those cars around this circuit.
So there's about a 50% similarity in componentry between the road-going R8 and the GT3. Well, it's even more than the GT4. They do share the same chassis as well, which is built in the same workshop in Audi in Germany. And how about this? The chasing pack is about to catch the traffic or having their own fight. So with 8 minutes, 41 seconds to go, this is about to get very exciting. There's a few different scraps to watch out for here. Birambaki needs to be clinical in the traffic with Jeff Emery trying to reel him in.
There's a number of cars now into the 121.4s. Tony Bates last time around a 121.4. He went quickest. Alex Howe's now just gone faster again. Still with that damage to the right rear. Certainly not slowing him down. A 121.40. Batesy is really pushing hard. He wants to get past Yasser Shahin. I'm not sure whether or not they're going to catch Alex Howe, but positions 3, 4 and 5 all circulating in the 121.4s. That's a very good effort for all of those drivers. Now we're talking the differences in cars. You can see the physical difference between the GT3 and the GT4. Tony Bates' car is the first of the Generation 2 Audi R8 LMS GT3s, first introduced in 2015. The car in front of him, like the bulk of the GT3s in this field, are the 2019 spec cars. Something's going on down there. I think it's just the GT4s moving out of the way, allowing those race leaders to fire through. It's not the place you want to be caught. Mark Williamson just in front of Yasser Shahin there. No doubt he'll give them some racing room. Although in this part of the circuit, not much difference in performance between those two cars. But you look at the nose of Tony Bates' car versus the nose of Yasser Shahin's, that big grille that makes up half the front of Tony Bates' car doesn't exist on the 2019 model in the same fashion. The air flows very much the same way, but the front splitter and the nose itself of the car, certainly the dive are very big on the new car. Car different, but overall performance very similar.
Anderson Tsunoda trying to give Bates the room. They ran side by side through the chicane. Bates has lost a little bit of time here to the back of Yasser Shahin. Bachi's opened up 2 seconds as a result. 3/10 quicker on that last lap. So he's been the big winner in the traffic. Emery's fallen back into the clutches of Alex Howe just a little bit, and Bates maybe 1 or 2 car lengths further back off the Ben Motorsport entry of Yasser Shahin. So that's the net result of the traffic. And Sung Jin Zhu will hopefully, for his sake, be able to get around Anderson Tsunoda as they go up towards turn 8.
It's very much deja vu to Ningbo in China last year, where Andrew Haryanto cleaned up, then race leader Burpa Mbaki to turn 1, eliminated both those cars effectively from the race. He was very apologetic afterwards, and much like Burt said yesterday to Andy Jones down there in the pit lane, it's all right, don't worry about it, it's fine. He's Thai, he has the right approach to life, and just like last year at Ningbo, he went straight on the following race and smashed the field and took another victory for the year. At that stage it was win number 3, and that helped pave the way for him to get right into championship contention going into the final round. Unfortunately couldn't nail it. The win went to this man who's seemingly made a mess of it down at the final corner. He's very much out of sorts this weekend. It'd be interesting to see whether we have an onboard replay of just what happened, whether it was an own goal.
I get the feeling that was GT4 related.
It could well have been.
I think he was trying to work his way through the traffic and has come unstuck down there at turn 14. Not been his weekend, has it?
No, he was really a standout last year. Surprised everybody with that brilliant win in the opening round 12 months ago. He transferred that into the championship victory in the end. He's probably a bit dirty with himself at the moment. And he's been this weekend very much out of sorts.
No, he's already cleared the traffic.
Yeah, behind Jing. Oh,
wow.
May have gone in a little bit too deep. Just didn't want to clip the rear of Jingzhou. And turfed it onto the grass. Safely brought it back into play. But that's not done much for his race. Certainly there won't be much of an assault left with under 5 minutes to go in this race on the leaderboard. Unfortunately for Andrew, not expected to make the podium this time round. Made it twice last year. Won't visit it again in season 2019 for the kick-off. There is Mark Williamson, Australian, doesn't do a lot of racing these days. Veteran of GT racing many years ago. There's a lot of driver testing. Spent a lot of time between Australia and New Zealand. Was here 12 months ago in a GT3 car and enjoying his time in the GT4. Alex Howe still creeping up on the back of Jeff Emery. Yasser Shahin's just lowered the benchmark. 1:21.34. He's gone 4/10 quicker than he did yesterday. He's put a lot of that down to track conditions. He's loving his time in the Audi. Of course, does a lot of GT racing when time allows. The owner of the Ben Motorsport Park, his brother Sam, he's also here competing this weekend. Very passionate about their motorsport. In fact, they took a number of drivers yesterday after we'd finished. A number of these drivers, Anderson Tsunoda, etc., over to the Ben just to have a good look at the facility. They're all very impressed. Alex is pushing very hard. He's probably gone in a little bit deep there in the CDS Races entry. Great to see him back, a former AM Cup champion in this championship, but now he's very much an outright favourite as Jeff Emery just grazes the tyres on the exit.
The top 5 starting to condense slightly. The time's very similar between the lot. The top 5 drivers, their quickest time is not really separated by more than a tenth or two. So difficult to make 2 seconds up on the racetrack when they are so similar. 3 minutes to go, so dying stages. maybe this will be the third from last lap, depending on when they get to the stripe, when the clock does tick down to 0.
It's Daniel Bilski just coming across the line a lot further back than he would like. The Hong Kong-based Australian was here 12 months ago, and this year will be campaigning both the Thailand Super Series in an Audi R8 LMS GT3, an Evo, affectionately known the Evo, the 2019 model, and also in the Blancpain Asia Series alongside his teammate, Be Quick team boss Henk Kicks. So he's getting valuable miles in this. And talking to him yesterday, we're watching those great shots of Jeff Emery pushing him all the way through the race. He said, I've never been more under fire in my life. He said, that's the fastest I've ever been around here. I was pushing as hard as I could. The only break I got was through to turn 8. And that was the only rest and the only time he could stop concentrating on the mirrors. And certainly Jeff said he did everything right down to that just late braking move at turn 9. Dirty part of the circuit, and that allowed Jeff Emery through. Uh-oh, what's going on with Andrew? It's really not playing out nicely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. One wonders whether he might have an issue. See what happens on board. Just go in too deep. Yeah, well, bit of oversteer.
Did a good job to get the wheel turned back around to the right-hand side so he didn't bury himself completely in the tyres then. That was actually a good save given the position he was in. Could have quite easily buried himself in then.
Claimed a few victims this weekend. He managed to get out of it relatively unscathed, but that really does highlight the kind of weekend the reigning champion has been having. Not the return to Australia that he wanted. Spent a lot of his life in Australia, in Melbourne. Indonesian driver, certainly business in Indonesia. Loves his motorsport. Drives an awful lot of one-make GT machines around the world. And really has enjoyed his time with the Audi Sport R8 LMS Cup. Sabir Mbakti still clear, although it's down to a 1.5 seconds. So Jeff Emery, last time round, made up a little bit of ground at the front of the field. But catching is one thing, getting past is another. With effectively a lap to go. The Thai driver, very popular addition to the championship, very humble. Turned up 12 months ago and said, don't expect much from me. I haven't driven these cars a lot. By the end of the season, he was very much a championship contender. And such was the success of the mentoring program with the Cup last year that these drivers, when they were going head-to-head in things like Blancpain and the SIC 888 endurance event at Shanghai International Circuit, were only separated from the pro drivers by as much as a second. So they really are pushing these cars very, very hard.
Could be heading for a little bit of a grandstand finish here. We've got 9 seconds left on the clock, which means next time by will be their last lap. Alex Au, despite the damage, going on with it here. He was the quickest in this lead group last lap round. He's sitting in third. The gap between first and third now just 1.7 seconds, and there's proof of how hard he's pushing out towards the tyre bundle at the exit of turn 7. Have we got some late race drama heading our way?
He's an experienced campaigner. He's done a lot of GT racing and a lot of GT racing in Audi machinery. Not just a former AM Cup champion in this category, in both the Generation 1 and Generation 2 cars, but also in series like Blancpain, alongside drivers like Alex Young. So he has some very, very good experience. You could expect him to have a real shot because he's certainly using all of the circuit, all of the curb.
Jeff Emery has just set his personal best times to the second sector. He's sitting in second in the silver and red car. Oh, and the leader is off!
Oh, no!
Coming to the last lap, he speared it into the fence by himself. With just 3.2 and a bit Ks to go.
We saw that in qualifying. He was setting purple sector after purple sector, came down to the last corner, did just what he's done here this time. He's gone in deeper. You can see Jeff Emery coming.
Yep, could feel second place breathing down his neck. And off he goes. He will be filthy with himself. He's gone to the back of the field.
He'd done everything right to that point, and that's all it takes. So now Jeff Emery is the race leader. Alex Au can see a return victory to the Cup, and he'd like nothing more than to stand on the top step of the podium. There is a dejected Burrit Birambakti. Perhaps not go that way, Burrit.
Yeah, he's trying to get to the pits. I wouldn't be headed that way at the moment.
Andrew Harrianto, 1:20.12. That would be a new lap record for the Cup around the Adelaide Parkland circuit. So whilst we felt he might have been having dramas, he certainly wasn't. What does Alex Au have? Well, he's got a man with immense experience around the Adelaide Parkland circuit immediately in front of him. And I don't expect that Jeff Emery will leave the door open now. He'll do everything he can to keep the CDDS Races entry behind him as he comes to the final corner. This is the last lap. This is race 2 of the opening round of the season, the 8th season of the Audi Sport R8 LMS Cup.
Wow, what an exciting finish to the weekend for the Audis. And it's Jeff Emery who will get the job done on the podium yesterday, but on the top step today from Alex Au and Yasser Shahin. And Biram Bhakti will take no points home in round 2. Incredible scenes at the very end, slipping off coming to the last lap. And it hands the win to Jeff Emery. He was breathing down the neck of the leader, succumbed to that pressure. And there he is with the forlorn walk back to the paddock.
Very much a pattern this weekend with the pole sitter going on to take the victory. And sadly for the two drivers who were the standouts last season, 7 wins out of 10 between them, neither of them will take home points. Well, that's a tough run.
Wow, by just 0.3 of a second. Speed got quicker and quicker throughout that race as well. Biram Bhakti there in 8th, but didn't get to the checkered flag, so that will be a did not finish. Sun Jing Zhu wrapping up the top 5. Tony Bates just missing the podium. How about that? That was an exciting way to finish off the weekend with the Audis. Good racing.
As we saw last year, fantastic. It all kicked off at the start. Watch this, 4 wide down to the centre chicane. That usually doesn't work, but rarely a touch. And there is Yasser Shahin, drops back from 2nd to 4th. The big starter though, Biram Bhakti, Alex Au, former AM Cup champion in the Cup, making his return full-time as an outright contender. They ran away at the front of the field. Tony Bates was the one who perhaps lost out most from a second row start to be back as far as 7th. He had a lot of work to do, working his way back through the field. Alex Au held the lead early, and this contact with Biram Bhakti opened the door, let the Thai driver through to the lead. A little bit of damage to the right rear of Alex Au's entry. And Biram Bhakti just pressed on. That opened the door for Jeff Emery to close in, to do what he could to try and get past Alex Au. Au messed it up just going down to turn 9, opened the door for Emery. Shades of his move on Bilski last year, and then after doing just about everything right, well, no, that's Andrew Arianto, but his 2018 title rival would go on and do the same thing.
Amazingly,
pushing hard.
he set the lap record after doing that.
Wow.
Turn 7. So went and swiped the wall. Trying to get that lap record.
Looking to achieve something, and then this was the race leader, Biram Bhakti, with just a lap to go, threw it all the way in the final corner. And yeah, clearly very frustrated with himself, and did not want to leave Australia with 0 points. Overall, it was Jeff Emery who would take the win from Alex Au and Yasser Shahin.
He's a race winner here this weekend in the Audi R8 LMS Cup. Congratulations to Jeff Emery, the Australian, winning the 2nd round here in Adelaide. Smooth drive from Jeff Emery. Did drive from pole position to the checkered flag. Wasn't quite that simple though. Spent most of that race floating around 3rd and 4th. Had to make some moves. The pressure was building towards the end of the race as they all, the top 3, moved closer to one another. And how about that for a finish? Jeff Emery getting the job done. And Biram Bhakti, he will be devastated. An absolute certainty there, getting ripped out of his hands in the last few minutes of the race. Just 1 lap to go, slipped off at turn 14. A clear leader at that point. Don't see too many mistakes like that.
No, you don't, but that was experience certainly plays a little bit into that. And Yasser Shahin, you can see he's a little bit beaten up. Yesterday was so hot, he was contemplating just pulling the car into pit lane. 65-degree cabin temperatures, so certainly the lower ambient temperature today makes things just a little bit nicer, but he was being pushed right through that race. Certainly Tony Bates at one stage all over the back of him.
Jeff Emery himself, a really good success story. Missed the better part of 12 months of racing after being injured in a GT crash in Perth, which is part of the Australian GT Championship, and since then has come back to win that championship and now win races as well outside of the Australian GT title. In a brand new championship for his sake this weekend. Now will he go on with a chance potentially to compete in Asia? The next few rounds are in China, Zhuhai, and then Shanghai, the Grand Prix circuit, over to Japan after that for Suzuka. The last 2 races in Malaysia. So to make the walk up to the podium. Plenty of fans here this weekend in Adelaide. What a great event this is, the Superloop Adelaide 500. It's the opening round of the Virgin Australia Supercars Championship. And once again, very cool to have the Audis back here. They add a lot of colour, a lot of glitz, a lot of glamour. And the Audi R8 so fast around here, 1 minute 21s. 1:21.2, the quickest lap from essentially amateur class drivers, is extremely impressive.
Well, you look at that, there's 7 drivers in the 121s on that race. So 7, 6. But still, that is a stellar lap around here in any car, especially when you consider it's a street circuit. Limited runoff, and a number of these drivers, limited experience. Whilst Birnbaki made that error towards the end, maybe something had gone wrong. We might not be fully aware of exactly what took place that led to him running off the circuit on the final corner. They are very much amateur drivers, and to punch out laps like this on a circuit like this, some of them with very limited experience on the Adelaide Parkland circuit, is very good, especially when you consider drivers like Jeff Emery and Tony Bates, who have been coming here, I think they said to me the other day, 12 years. So that's a lot of experience around this place to be able to apply and use when they need it. And Jeff Emery certainly put that to good use. He weathered a bit of a storm from behind and then ultimately applied enough pressure to get himself to the top step of the podium.
Great shot of the rear-mounted Audi R8 engine, V10 power, and the R8, such an iconic sports car now, whether it be the road-going version or, like we see here, the GT3 version, which is an absolute weapon. Looks like a fighter jet when it's sitting there. Now it's time to celebrate. We'll head it over to the podium, and we'll celebrate here in Adelaide.
Now presenting the 2019 Audi Sport R8 LMS Cup Round 2 awarding ceremony for the GT3 Cup. Third prize goes to Yasser Shahin from the Bend Motorsport Park. Second prize goes to Alex Au. And winner of the GT3 Cup goes to Jeff Emery from Team Valvoline. May I now invite Tanya Gosson, General Manager of Castrol Australia and New Zealand, to present the prize to the winners. And now to present the prize to the winner for Pirelli Best Lap. The winner of Pirelli Best Lap goes to Andrew Hayato. Now let's invite Simon Poole, Technical Director of Pirelli Australia, to present the prize to the winner. Congratulations to all the winners on the stage. And let's now take the opportunity for a group photo.
Exciting stuff here in Audi. They put on quite a show, and it's Jeff Emery for round 2 here in Australia, who picks up the honours. Over to China now for this championship before it wraps up in Malaysia at season end. Another great way to start off the action with the Audi Sport R8 LMS Cup here in Adelaide. Thanks for watching.